Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with a truth most people don't want to hear. You will not always feel motivated. In fact, most days you won't, and if your life depends on motivation, then your life will always be unstable. Because motivation is an emotion, and emotions are unreliable, but action is power. Today is not about feeling good. Today is about becoming strong. Stop waiting for motivation. It's not coming. Most people don't realize that waiting for motivation is one of the most socially accepted excuses for inaction. It sounds reasonable, even intelligent, to say, "I'll start when I feel motivated." But what actually happens is weeks turn into months, and months turn into years. Life keeps moving, opportunities pass, and the person stays exactly where they are. Motivation feels like something that should arrive first, but in reality, it rarely shows up on its own. Waiting for it is like waiting for perfect. Whether before you ever step outside, you end up living indoors forever. Motivation is not a reliable starting signal because it is tied to mood, energy levels, and external circumstances. Some days you feel strong, hopeful, and energized. Other days you feel tired, distracted, or overwhelmed. If your actions depend on how you feel, your progress will always be inconsistent. The truth is that successful people are not more motivated than others. They are simply less controlled by their emotions. They move forward even when their internal state tells them to stop. Here is what most people never understand. Clarity does not come before action. It comes because of action. People often say, "I don't know what to do yet," or "I'm not clear enough to start." But clarity is not something you think your way into. It is something you move your way into. When you take a step, even a small one, your mind begins to organize itself around motion. Confusion fades, focus sharpens, and direction appears only after you are already in motion. Confidence works the same way. You do not build confidence by waiting until you feel confident. Confidence is built by doing things while you are unsure and realizing you survived. Each action taken without motivation becomes proof that you are capable of moving forward despite resistance. That proof is far more powerful than any temporary emotional boost. Over time, your self-trust grows, and the fear that once controlled you loses its grip. Another hard truth is that waiting for motivation trains your brain to associate action with comfort. You teach yourself, unconsciously, that you only act when conditions are perfect. This creates weakness, not strength. But when you act without motivation, you train your brain to associate action with identity. You become someone who moves because it's who you are, not because you feel good. That shift changes everything about how you approach challenges. The moment you take action while motivation is dead, you break a psychological barrier. You prove to yourself that discomfort is survivable. You prove that resistance does not have authority over your decisions. This is where real personal power is built, not in moments of excitement, but in moments of resistance. Each time you move forward anyway, you reclaim control over your life. So stop waiting. Stop negotiating with your feelings. Motivation is not a prerequisite for action. It is often the reward for it. Act first, and motivation will chase you. Move before you're ready, and readiness will meet you on the way. The life you want is not waiting for you to feel motivated. It is waiting for you to move. Discipline is stronger than motivation. Discipline is not about being harsh or robotic. It is about being reliable to yourself. Motivation rises and falls based on sleep, stress, praise, failure, and mood. But discipline remains steady because it is rooted in decision, not emotion. When you choose discipline, you stop asking yourself how you feel and start honoring what you decided. That single shift separates people who make progress from people who stay stuck explaining why they haven't started yet. Motivation feels powerful in the moment, but it is temporary by nature. It can push you forward for a day, sometimes a week, but it will not carry you through long-term challenges. Discipline, on the other hand, shows up when motivation disappears. It is the force that keeps you moving on ordinary days, hard days, and days when nothing seems to be working. This is why lasting success is never built on excitement. It is built on consistency. When discipline becomes part of your identity, your life stops feeling like a daily battle. You are no longer negotiating with yourself every morning. You don't waste mental energy deciding whether to act. You simply execute. This reduces stress, increases focus, and creates a sense of inner stability. The mind becomes calmer when decisions are already made, and that calm allows you to perform at a higher level. Discipline also protects you from self-betrayal. Every time you say you will do something and then don't, you weaken your trust in yourself. Over time, this creates doubt, hesitation, and insecurity. Discipline repairs that damage. Each disciplined action, no matter how small, is a promise kept. And when you repeatedly keep promises to yourself, your confidence becomes grounded, not emotional. Another powerful truth about discipline is that it creates freedom, not restriction. Most people believe discipline limits their choices, but in reality, it expands them. When you are disciplined with your time, energy, and habits, you gain more control over your future. You are no longer reacting to life, you are directing it. That sense of control is one of the greatest sources of personal strength. Discipline also builds resilience. When challenges arise, and they always do, disciplined individuals don't collapse. They adjust, adapt, and continue. They understand that progress is not about perfect conditions, but about persistent action. This mindset allows them to withstand pressure without losing direction, because their behavior is guided by standards, not circumstances. In the end, discipline is what carries you when motivation fails, excitement fades, and external support disappears. It is the inner structure that holds your life together. When you rely on discipline instead of motivation, you stop depending on how you feel and start depending on who you are. And that is when your actions become unstoppable. Action creates energy, not the other way around. One of the biggest lies people believe is that they must feel energized before they can act. They wait for the spark, the surge, the moment when everything inside feels aligned. But energy does not appear out of nowhere. It is generated through movement. When you stay still, your mind and body slow down. When you move even slightly, systems wake up. Action is not the result of energy, it is the source of it. Inaction feels safe at first, but it quietly drains you. The longer you avoid a task, the heavier it feels, and the more exhausted you become thinking about it. Mental fatigue often comes not from doing too much, but from doing nothing while carrying the weight of unfinished commitments. The moment you begin, that weight starts to lift. Movement shifts your internal state faster than any amount of thinking ever will. Small actions have a powerful effect on the nervous system. One email sent, one page written, one step taken is enough to change your physiology. Your breathing changes, your posture changes, your focus sharpens, the body responds to action with alertness, and the mind follows. This is why momentum often feels sudden, because it was triggered by something small but decisive. Action also interrupts overthinking. When you are stuck in your head, doubts multiply and fear grows louder. But when your hands are busy and your attention is engaged, those mental loops lose power. Action pulls you into the present moment where anxiety has less space to operate. You stop imagining worst-case scenarios and start dealing with what is actually in front of you. Another overlooked truth is that energy follows commitment. When you decide fully and without hesitation to act, your system reallocates resources. Focus increases, distractions decrease. You may not feel excited, but you feel engaged. Engagement is far more powerful than excitement because it sustains effort. This is how people accomplish difficult tasks even on low-energy days. As action becomes consistent, energy compounds. Each step makes the next step easier. What once felt heavy begins to feel normal. What once required effort becomes routine. This compounding effect is how ordinary people achieve extraordinary results, not through bursts of inspiration, but through steady, repeated movement. So if you feel tired, stuck, or unmotivated, don't wait for energy to arrive. Create it. Move your body. Start the task. Take the first uncomfortable step. Energy is not something you wait for. It is something you generate through action. Do it ugly, do it scared, do it anyway. Most people are not held back by lack of ability. They are held back by the need to do everything perfectly. They delay starting because they want the timing to be right, the plan to be flawless, and the outcome to be guaranteed. What they don't realize is that perfection is not a standard of excellence, it is a form of fear. It is fear dressed up as preparation, and it quietly keeps people frozen. Fear does not disappear before action, it disappears because of action. Waiting to feel fearless is another way of waiting forever. Growth requires stepping forward while your hands are shaking and your mind is uncertain. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is movement in spite of it. When you accept that fear will be present, you stop letting it decide for you. Doing it ugly means allowing yourself to be a beginner. It means giving yourself permission to be imperfect, to make mistakes, and to learn through experience rather than theory. Every expert you admire once produced work that was average, awkward, or incomplete. The difference is they kept going. Progress is built on volume, not perfection. Perfectionism also creates unnecessary pressure. When you demand flawless performance from the start, you turn simple actions into heavy emotional events. This pressure drains energy and increases resistance, but when you decide to do it anyway without expecting brilliance, you reduce the emotional cost of action. Suddenly, starting feels manageable and momentum becomes possible. Fear often disguises itself as logic. It tells you to wait, to prepare more, to think longer. But real readiness is built through repetition, not overthinking. Each imperfect attempt teaches you something valuable. Each mistake refines your approach. What you learn in motion can never be learned by standing still. When you act despite fear, you send a powerful signal to yourself. Fear does not control me. That signal reshapes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who hesitates and start seeing yourself as someone who moves forward under pressure. This identity shift is far more important than any single outcome. So do it ugly, do it scared, do it before you feel confident. Confidence is a byproduct, not a requirement. The path to mastery is not clean or comfortable, but it is always forward. Action taken imperfectly will always outperform perfect plans that never leave your mind. Become what you repeatedly do. Your life is not shaped by your intentions, your goals, or your thoughts alone. It is shaped by your repeated actions. What you do every day, especially when no one is watching, is what defines you. One action may seem small and insignificant, but when repeated consistently, it becomes a pattern. And patterns over time become identity. This is why lasting change is never about one big decision, but about the behaviors you reinforce daily. Every action you take is a message to your mind about who you are. When you show up, even when it's uncomfortable, you tell yourself that you are reliable. When you quit, delay, or avoid, you tell yourself the opposite. The mind listens to behavior more than words. You can tell yourself you are confident or disciplined, but if your actions don't support it, your identity remains unchanged. This is why forcing yourself to act, especially when motivation is dead, is so powerful. In those moments, action carries more weight. It proves that your behavior is not dependent on emotion. That proof becomes evidence, and evidence reshapes self-belief. Over time, you stop seeing discipline as something you try to do and start seeing it as something you simply are. Repetition turns effort into habit. At first, action feels heavy and requires conscious effort, but as you repeat it, the resistance fades. The behavior becomes familiar, then automatic. What once felt difficult begins to feel normal. This is how people transform their lives, not through willpower every day, but through systems of repeated behavior that no longer require emotional struggle. Identity-based action also changes how you respond to setbacks. When your identity is strong, failure doesn't define you, it informs you. You don't quit because quitting no longer aligns with who you believe you are. You adjust, learn, and continue. The action itself becomes non-negotiable, even when results are slow or uncertain. Another important truth is that consistency compounds silently. You may not see immediate results, and that can be discouraging, But beneath the surface, each repeated action is building skill, confidence, and resilience. One day, progress becomes visible and it feels sudden, yet it was earned through countless unnoticed repetitions. In the end, your future self is being built right now through what you repeatedly do, not what you plan to do, not what you hope to do, but what you actually do. When you force yourself to take action consistently, you are not just completing tasks, you are constructing an identity that is strong, disciplined, and unstoppable. Pain is temporary. Regret is permanent. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid pain, not realizing that avoidance creates a deeper, longer-lasting kind of suffering. The discomfort of action feels intense in the moment, so they choose comfort instead, but comfort is deceptive. It feels good now, yet it quietly accumulates consequences. The pain of effort is sharp but short-lived. The pain of regret is dull, heavy, and persistent. One builds you, the other slowly erodes you. Every meaningful action carries discomfort. Growth stretches you beyond what is familiar, and that stretch is never painless. Whether it's waking up early, facing rejection, pushing through fatigue, or risking failure, action demands something from you. But that demand has an expiration date. Once the action is taken, the pain fades, and what remains is pride, progress, and self-respect. Regret, on the other hand, has no expiration date. Regret grows in silence. It shows up late at night in quiet moments when you remember what you didn't do. It reminds you of opportunities you avoided, chances you talked yourself out of, and potential you left unused. Unlike effort, regret does not make you stronger. It weakens your belief in yourself and reinforces the idea that fear is in control. When you choose action, you are choosing short-term discomfort for long-term peace. You may feel exhausted, challenged, or uncertain, but deep down you know you honored yourself. That inner alignment creates confidence. Even if the outcome isn't perfect, you can live with the result because you showed up. That peace is priceless. Avoidance may feel like relief, but it is temporary relief followed by long-term dissatisfaction. Each time you choose comfort over action, you teach yourself that fear gets the final say. Over time, this pattern shrinks your world. Your dreams get smaller, your expectations lower, and your tolerance for discomfort weakens. Life becomes safe but empty. Choosing effort rewires this pattern. When you repeatedly face discomfort, your tolerance for pain increases and your fear decreases. You realize that discomfort is not a signal to stop, but a signal that growth is happening. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable, then ordinary. This is how strength is built, not by avoiding pain, but by using it as training. In the end, everyone experiences pain. The question is which kind you choose. The pain of discipline lasts a moment, but it pays dividends for a lifetime. The pain of regret lasts far longer and gives nothing in return. Choose the pain that moves you forward, because future you will either thank you for the effort or resent you for the excuses. Decide once, then execute daily. One of the greatest drains on human energy is indecision. When you redecide the same things every day, you exhaust your mental resources before you even begin. You wake up debating whether to act, whether it's worth it, whether today is the right day. This constant negotiation weakens focus and creates unnecessary resistance. Deciding once removes that friction and turns action into a habit rather than a struggle. High performers simplify their lives by eliminating repeated decisions. They set standards in advance and live by them. When the decision is already made, emotions lose their power to interfere. You don't need to feel ready, inspired, or confident because the path has already been chosen. Execution becomes automatic, and consistency becomes possible. Deciding once also creates psychological freedom. Instead of carrying the weight of should I or shouldn't I, your mind becomes available for performance. You direct your energy toward doing the work, not arguing about it. This clarity brings calm, and calm improves effectiveness. The fewer decisions you debate, the more energy you have to apply where it matters most. Daily execution is where transformation actually happens. Big decisions feel powerful, but they mean nothing without daily follow-through. Progress is built through ordinary days, repeated actions, and quiet discipline. When execution becomes non-negotiable, even small steps compound into massive change over time. There will still be days when resistance shows up. Your mind will still suggest comfort, delay, or excuses, but when the decision is already locked in, those thoughts no longer control you. You don't fight them, you move through them. Action becomes a response to commitment, not to mood. Executing daily also strengthens trust in yourself. Each day you follow through, you reinforce the belief that you are dependable. This self-trust becomes a powerful internal anchor. When challenges arise, you don't panic or quit because you have a track record of showing up. Confidence becomes grounded in experience, not emotion. In the end, deciding once and executing daily turns discipline into identity. You stop seeing action as something you try to force and start seeing it as simply what you do. Life stops being a series of emotional debates and becomes a process of steady forward motion. That is how momentum is sustained, and that is how lasting change is built.